Oh, okay. All right. Good morning, everyone. Again, it's good to see you all. Welcome to a day of unity. I am Council President LaMonica McIver, representing, of course, the great city of Newark. It's a pleasure for me to be here with you all this morning. Today, we are honoring and celebrating the one and only Amiri Baraka, whose birthday is today. Let's clap it up for the one and only Amiri Baraka. Imama would have been 89 today on Earth's soil, and definitely he's celebrating an afterlife and having a way better time, I'm sure, than us, wherever he is. And we're grateful for that. We're grateful for his work, grateful for everything that he's dedicated to us. For us to be here today, many of us who knew him personally, who had a relationship with him, we're doing the work that we're doing because of him, that he planted all of the seeds into us to continue doing the work that we're doing today. We are on the road to the National Black Political Convention. We are on the road. This is the reason why we're here today, and we're in for a treat with the premier panels to talk about real issues together and unified. I want to thank the good brother Ed Riley. He's back there with the orange shirt, just in case you guys do not know who he is. He has been persistent and laser focused on the convention, and we just thank you for your work. We know it's not easy to continue to push forward, so thank you so much, brother. We appreciate your work. I want to give a special thanks to the sponsors who made today possible. First, our one and only, our honorable mayor, Mayor Ras J. Baraka. He's going to be joining us later on a panel this afternoon. We want to thank Newark Public Schools. Our superintendent, Roger Leone, was here earlier, and we want to thank them. We want to give a special shout out to Principal Gerhardt, who's in the back there. She's with us on a Saturday. She is the leader of this beautiful school building that we're in, Science Park High School. So we want to thank her for her welcoming and just being her hospitality today to us. We want to thank Newark Happening, Brick City Peace Collective. Shout out to the director, Kalisha Wingfield Hill, who's going to be on the panel as well today. The great sister doing good work. We want to shout out, of course, the Office of Violence Prevention. We have our queen that we were waiting for, always in regal purple, Director Yuri. Everybody should know Director Yuri. We're thankful for her and her leadership. We also want to shout out the Yard and also MBPC for sponsoring today's event. So I hope everyone in attendance enjoys today's program. I heard Baba say a couple of times this morning that today is just about planting seeds. I stole that from him. He didn't even think I was listening. I'll be listening to him and he don't even know it. Yep, he said, make an old man proud. He said today was about planting seeds, so I really hope that you gain a lot of seeds from today's discussions, whether you're here for one panel, two, or three, but definitely that you take those panels back, take those seeds back to the work that you do to your circles, to your inner circles, to your families, and beyond. So enjoy today. God bless you all for being here, and I just, definitely just want you to text a couple of people while you're here. Tell them we here. And that the next panel is starting at what time and for them to get here. It is enough space. They are not in the rain. There's an opportunity for them to come in and at least grab one session today. So do that, post on your social medias and ask them to come down. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to the one and only Baba, who is right here. I call him Baba. That's what I call him, who's going to moderate this panel. Thank you all.
Let's give a warm round of applause for our Council President, Madam LaMonica McIver. Now, I very purposely, I was teasing her. We were waiting for the mic check. I said, I have to put the mic on the stand because if I take it in my hand, I'm gonna start taking over the stage and weaponizing this mic, and you won't be able to get it out of my hand, right? So, and she did an introduction that really minimizes my need to be here, but just for sake of grounding, and I appreciate all of the acknowledgments that she did, and I want to acknowledge Principal Gerhardt, who's in the back, and everyone who she acknowledged that was right and just. It helped make this happen. We also have the great Amilcar Cabral taught us to tell no lies and claim no easy victories. We've had some bumps in the road, right, that we're not happy about. And some of those bumps in the road were internal bumps in the road that need to be smoothed out for real. And that's one of the reasons why we do not have the turnout that we have today. But I learned from a bold black man who used to roll with Malcolm X by the name of Herman Ferguson, who said, "Don't worry about those who don't come, organize those who do." Right? I want everybody to know that this gathering is being live streamed on several platforms, including the cities, including the platform of the National Black Political Convention, right? So it can be shared. Those are not here. LaMonica was right. You want to text about, pick up the live stream, right? Because it's happening, right? Some grounding. Now, I don't have my gourd and my water with me, but I want to acknowledge in an ancestral way, do a modest libation. 5 ancestors who were important to what happened in Gary in 1972 to invoke the spirit of unity, right? Because that's what we're here for. One of the problems, y'all, I want you to hear me. One of the problems that took place in Gary was, and it's the least spoken of problem in Gary 72, was the question of gender equity and gender balance. And we're still struggling with that problem. But so I want to lift up 2 incredible females who were lifted up regally at Gary, acknowledging that the other work by a whole lot of other females need also to be lifted up properly moving forward. Y'all heard of Martin Luther King Jr., right? But did you know how bad his queen Coretta Scott was? Coretta Scott King, who was a woman of stature in her own right, right? Who stood with that man thick and thin, and including at times when he made some horrible mistakes, but held on to him, held on to the mission, and in his absence after he was snatched from us, on April 4th, 1968, found a way to stand on her own legs without her amazing partner and built an institution that's called the Martin Luther King Center for Social Change in Atlanta, Georgia, that is still rolling, run by their youngest daughter, Reverend Bernice King. For Coretta Scott King, I want y'all to give me an ashe. Give me an ashe. Give me an ashe. I know y'all heard of this. I know y'all heard of this long-legged cat out of Detroit by the way of Malcolm X, right? But did you know his queen, Betty Bahia Shabazz? Most of y'all ain't never even knew she even had an African name, Betty Bahia Shabazz, right? And once upon a time in New York City, and I was a young street soldier back then, rolling with some folks back then in the city, we had a mayor who was not like our mayor, who was going to give the space that was the former Audubon Ballroom to Columbia University, one of the worst landlords in the city of New York, for $1, and destroy that historical landmark where Malcolm organized and where Malcolm was ultimately assassinated. We said, hell no, you not, Mr. Mayor. And we raised hell in that town. We turned that town's community board around, because that's how you get down in New York, right? We saved that building, and then Dr. Betty appreciated what she did, and she struggled with it because it's a place of trauma for her. She and her children were there and witnessed the falling of her husband. So that was a tough thing for her to deal with. But once she finally embraced it, said, we're going to turn this into a place that not only honors my husband's legacy, but we're going to turn this into an education space. So that space is now the Malcolm X Dr. Shabazz Educational Center, formerly the Audubon Ballroom. Betty Bahia Shabazz was rightly treated like a queen at the 1972 Gary Convention. Give me an ashe for Dr. Betty Bahia Shabazz. Ashe. Ashe. We had a young soldier on with us last night on All Politics Are Local, who's going to be with us later on, who represents the best in the difficult spaces that a lot of us come from, because a lot of us are ex a lot of stuff, yours truly included. I was not born no Baba Zaid and Gaza Muhammad. Y'all can believe that, right? All right? My son, I'm talking about my son right now. And my son was, brother, justice impacted. It's the language that we're learning to use. But came out of that and went into hip-hop and became a force not just for, consciousness, but actually became a presence, in the work, the larger on-the-ground work, as he now works for Until Freedom, right? So that kind of energy is important. But he lifted up somebody who almost made it here, but who was there at Gary and was a very important organizing force during that period for Dr. Martin Luther King. And that's why Coretta was there. I don't know if ever y'all heard of Harry Belafonte. Harry Belafonte, who in the top of the epic decade of the 1960s was our most beloved performer. And he used that status not just to raise the question of racial injustice in America, but to bring his artistic friends and comrades into the struggle in very personal and material and physical ways. The Sidney Poitiers and Nancy Wilsons and all those other folks became friends and partners with Dr. Martin Luther King and Malcolm X by virtue of Harry fostering those relations. We said we just can't, shine while our people are battling. We got to help that battle. And he was a facilitator in that very important way, an important piece of the 1972 Gary Convention. And he passed away just a little while ago. And in his later stage, he did a lot to help mentor his daughter Gina Belafonte's generation in several formations that are actively involved, including Until Freedom. Right? So I want you to give me an ashe for Harry Belafonte. Ashe, give me one. Give me one. Give me one. My grandfather is from Stone Mountain, Georgia. Died in the Wool Clan country. Shot his way out of the South. I'm going to tell you something right now. Right? And nearby Klan country that was Stone Mountain, Georgia, was Sandersville, Georgia. You know where I'm going, young man. Right? And a no bigger than this, but with long vision. See, we need leaders that have vision. We're here because we have a mayor that has vision. His comrade, the mayor of Jackson, all the hell they're catching, had vision. I'm sure you've heard of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, but did you know that his birthday is today? Today! And way back in the early days of the mighty nation of Islam, this long-legged street cat that he cleaned up came out of prison and found himself in that Detroit mosque, the first mosque, and was not happy with the fact that all this wisdom, all this brotherhood and sisterhood, all this beauty, but the place wasn't full like we're not full right now. Messenger cut him loose, crushed the streets, not just in Detroit, but all up and down the highways and byways of this country. Using the model in what we now call the credible messenger model. You hear me, Brother Damon? Huh? That model that takes those of us who are deeply mired in the hurt and harm of our streets, dealing, banging, all that stuff we've done and need to stop doing, and gave us a model to do what? To wake up, clean up, and stand up. And anybody has a problem with that model, you know what? That's going to be your problem, because we're going to work this. And in this city that we love, in spite of all its problems and limitations, what we have done in just the last few years, because we got leadership with vision. We put some programs together, got some brothers and sisters coming from those spaces that they know they were in, cleaning themselves up. And the violence that stalked our streets like crazy years ago, we took that and cut that in half, more than in half, by virtue of those we have our hands on. Give me an ashe for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Give me an ashe for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Then there is, of course, the imamu. But y'all don't know what that means? That's in your mother tongue. That is called Swahili. That means the leader. And in his modesty, he actually shunned that. But he was indeed the imamu. At the time, he belonged to the Kawaida organization, the organization that gave us Kwanzaa and so many things related to the Nguzo Saba. Its leadership is a person who's still in the land of the living, but it was the imamu climbing on the shoulders of Malcolm, picking up the Trinity doctrine of black power. And what is that? Self-determination, self-defense, and self-respect. You know, we got the Father, Son, Holy Ghost. Classical African civilization, Brother Teacher Bashir, we got Asar, Aset, and Heru. When it comes to the black liberation movement, before the Black Lives Movement was born, those are the shoulders they stand on. Self-determination. Self-defense, hear me good, and self-respect. Imam put that right here on the ground and didn't just do that for his organization. He made that spread throughout the organizations and said for us to end apartheid, and that's what it was in Newark, New Jersey. I'm talking about in my lifetime. Sister Sharon, bear witness to me. My mother had to worry about her big, bad, bold husband who was from Newark, New Jersey, who wasn't afraid of nobody, going up Bloomfield Avenue or places like that because of the imperialities and these racists behind police who specialize in cracking black skulls. Talk about the good old days. You better know what you're talking about, right? In our lifetime, to run that gangster apartheid out of Dodge, and we did that. That required a united strategy. We had to put aside our differences where we needed to, and build where we needed to build, mobilize where we needed to mobilize, and get down the way we needed to get down. And sometimes that included having to deal with armed terrorists with arms. Self-determination, self-defense, and self-respect, so we could all have some peace. And as a young knucklehead in the 70s, I can remember how a whole lot of folks looked at what was happening in Newark by virtue of the leadership and the organizing energy and the creative energy. We weren't doing this being empty-minded, culturally empty-handed, folks. The Imam was our master teacher as a cultural worker and revolutionary theorist, right? What he was doing with us and showed us what we can do for ourselves was something we need to reclaim. And so let me give me an ashe for the Imamu Amiri Baraka. And I'm gonna sit down and shut up and just give you the format of this dialogue and I'm gonna let these young folks tell you what it is that needs to be done, right? We're in a very important transitional time in this country. We were backing up and beating up where we needed to. Racism in its ugliest expressions during that time. And we thought we had that done for all time. We were wrong. It is rearing its ugly head again in a way that is threatening and dangerous, right? Not just dangerous at the polls. It is dangerous at the polls. But they got people that they're sending to our spaces, to our supermarkets where we're, in those food deserts like Buffalo, locked and loaded and wasting our people, into our churches. And this is now I'm going to set the groundwork for this conversation. into our churches. Y'all remember the Emmanuel AME 9 just a few years ago? Where that lone Burger King loving white boy went into that church and slaughtered 9 people? Their pastor was the target. Why? He was not just a good pastor in a historic church that was steeped in the tradition of resistance in South Carolina, but he was also a state legislator. And he got hold of a case of a bad racist police officer killing a black man and lying about what we did, shooting him in the back, right? Did not know that he was, quote, videotaped. And when he was caught on tape, Clemente Pinckney, remember his name. We need to give him an ashe. Ashe for Clemente Pinckney, right? Led a charge within the South Carolina state legislature. This is something we can't do in New Jersey. A deep red state, very racist, Confederate and Confederate flag waving and conservative, but got Democrats and Republicans alike to unite in creating a body cam bill in that southern racist state. And that's why they went at that church and targeted that man and targeted his congregation the way they did. So for all of the peace that we must make and are making, we understand that if we are ever threatened wrongly by forces who seek to undo our lives in a terroristic way that has indeed happened and can happen, that we do indeed have the right to defend ourselves. I don't want peacemakers and anybody taking our peacemakers lightly, don't get it twisted. We're going to do this work. We're going to do it with our dignity. We're going to do it with all the tools and trainings that we've been given, right? And we're going to do it in a way that we protect it, because the lives we save, Zelly, you hear me? The lives we save matter. They matter. And we're going to honor that mission, despite of detractors near or far. So that's the spirit. Is the spirit of unity in the building, y'all? Is it here? Let me introduce. Monica, you see why I didn't grab the mic? Because I'd be all over this damn auditorium, but y'all wouldn't be able to get it out of my head. Y'all have to carry me out of here, right? From my left to my right, I'm going to introduce this panel, give them some talking points, and just let them do their thing, right? This young man to my left, so I'm enjoying like hell watching him grow in our midst. I remember the first time I encountered him. I never told you this. He was sitting in the back of a city council meeting, where we were in city council chambers. And I don't know, somehow we got to some kind of question and answer the thing, and I forget what it was, and I forget the particular lines that you dropped, but he just out of the audience in a very nation-esque way, right? Dropped some wisdom from some hip-hop lyrics, right? I said, who is this kid? I got to check this kid out. Very polished, and then step by step, he's been, taking on his responsibility of managing our believers at Mosque number 25. And he's a wonderful premier student of the Honorable Minister Farrakhan. Abdul Haq Muhammad, to my immediate left. Give him a round of applause. We put on the flyer the brother's slave name. He said, well, can you put either Damon X or Damon I? I said, make it plain. Which one you want, beloved? We got you. Brother Damon. Can't tell you how proud I am of the mighty Newark Community Street team, right? Sister Sharon, there you go. The elder approves. Elder approved, right? That's right. And this soldier, comes out of our tradition that I described with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And I said, listen, we were talking. He said, listen, Honorable, I said, that's right. You bring the Honorable Elijah Muhammad with you. We all gonna bring him today. We gonna lift him up because he belongs in this conversation. and the work that they have done, and the work that he has represented in a very dignified way, not just here, right? This work is being looked at by our people all over the country for what we're doing. So for folks who are new to this and not understanding this, this is one of the things I want one of your takeaways to be. We really do have something going on in Newark that a whole lot of spaces do not have, that have a whole lot of folks that we love, right, and look like this and need a lot of help. And so we are doing our share, not just to make peace in the streets, in our streets, anywhere we are called to help make that happen. Give Brother Damon a strong round of applause. It is the oldest of all and the mother of all of our civil rights organizations. They were very much there in '72 and part of any important unifying strategy our people have ever had. To be sure, one of its premier founders, the late, great W.E.B. Du Bois, was not just a radical scholar, but he was also an organizer of what was known as the Pan-African Conferences, right? A movement, an international movement of unity. So unity is the word, it's a watchword today, right? And he is, this brother here is not just a lead official for the Newark chapter of the NAACP. One of the first things that our beloved mayor did when he came into office, took on head on the question of police accountability. Y'all hear where I'm going? And Newark was at the forefront of an old call for police accountability, calling for civilian oversight of the police. It goes back to when I was a little child in the mid-'60s, before the uprising, right? NAACP was out in front of that. And even though we have civilian review boards in their very broken and lame forms that exist now because police unions chump off politicians, they didn't chump off Mayor Ras Jewel Baraka. Our CCRB became a model that we're still fighting for. A civilian review board that has teeth, that includes subpoena power, right? You ain't gonna hide them records no more. That includes a community-based character. We have social justice organizations that have seats on our civilian review board to guarantee something that's very important in the fight for police accountability, the question of transparency. No more secrets and sweeping stuff under the rug, because the NAACP got a seat on the civilian review board. The mighty Newark Anti-Violence Coalition got a seat on the civilian review board. The ACLU of New Jersey, it's got a seat, and we can go on down the line. Something to ensure transparency and principle in terms of investigations when those things take place. That's the kind of CCRB we are fighting for now, not just in Newark, but throughout the state of New Jersey. And I can go on, and I'll let him go further than that. But Rick Robinson is the chair of the Newark CCRB. Give him a round of applause, please. The sharp young brother to his right, out of the Passaic County gangster town that is Paterson, New Jersey. Jersey is gangster as hell, y'all. Y'all know that, right? Because most of us have been locked up by the gangsters that run the courts and the police. The Passaic County is loaded with that. And what this young man has been trying to do in that setting is difficult work, and we're very proud of the ground that he has broken. And he actually is somebody that represents two sides of this of the coin of this conversation. The leader of Black Lives Matter, Paterson, has also stepped into the foray of the kind of community-based services that we also provide in terms of mutual aid and community-based violence intervention and prevention, right? So he has a new program in addition to being the lead voice of protest around the question of police accountability. Y'all give a round of applause to my little brother, Zeli Imani. Paterson BLM, Black Lives Matter. and I'll kill you over this one to his right. It's my daughter Keisha, right? But we're being totally transparent about that, right? Our queen, our director of the Office of Violence Prevention, for folks who don't know, when we had the new Black Panther Party rocking and rolling, she was right in the middle of that. It's my chief of staff, right? Started her own when she was in college as a young girl, right? And she's still young, you know, got her cute on. Y'all know how she get down, right? Launched a Black and Latina sorority that was Afrocentric. She's been breaking ground. Everywhere she goes, she breaks ground and makes change. And when this space required leadership that had street creds and other kind of creds, right? Driven, of course, by the cred of commitment in principle, we couldn't have a better leader of our Office of Violence Prevention in bringing all of our troops together to make this peace in the streets that we see than our beloved director, Keisha Uri. Y'all give daughter an absolutely round of applause. Now, to my panelists, this is what we're going to do. This conversation, and remember, y'all, this is live stream, you know, tell folks to kick it, turn into the live stream. Newark TV is doing it, and NBPC is doing it, right? This conversation is important, not just because of the work and the lives that we're doing, right? But we're also always looking to make this work better. And I'll sum up what I need y'all to do in this way. 2 years ago, and he's not here today, and he'll probably show up before the day is over. Lawrence Ham, Adimu Chunga, that's his African name given to him by Amiri Baraka, runs the People's Organization for Progress, right? Every July 12th, which is the anniversary of the beginning of the Epic Newark Uprising in '67, we rally at what we call Memorial Park, that little monument. We need to really figure out how to lift that up better too, y'all, right? And we march to the 1st precinct and back, right? And, you know, Keisha and I had talked about, you know, let's let that crew has to learn about who we are, what we're doing. And they set up this whole thing, food, everything, ready to receive the marchers when they came. Larry didn't have a clue. Right? You know, his troops didn't have a clue. So they marched, went to 1st precinct and marched right back. And I'm saying that to say that there is a need within our community for those of us committed to change and being the healing and justice that we need, that there are 2 streams of struggle that have emerged that need a bridge to bring us closer together. And we need to be advocates for each side of our work that we do whenever that time calls for it. I need the Larry Hams to, when he's in spaces with people like Governor Phil Murphy and all those kind of folks, to be able to talk about what we're doing on this side as much as what we're doing on that side. You understand what I'm saying? And I need folks on our community-based violence intervention side in the name of people like our son Najee Seabrooks. Most recently, Andrew Washington, Bernard Plessy Jr. in Inglewood, right? To be able to, in those spaces that they're in, understand why we are advocating for certain things along the lines of strong CCRBs and other bills of police accountability, so we can strengthen ourselves on both sides of that walk. And I'll go one further. When Andrew was killed, y'all hear me. I want y'all to hear me in this, and I say this with critical love. A young woman in Jersey City who was the assemblywoman for that particular neighborhood, name is Angela McKnight. Bright, good young woman. Went to that vigil for Andrew. Block came out bold. Clergy dignified. Allies in place. Angela spoke, and very tearfully and passionately how she felt. She had to be here, and forgot that she is the sponsor of the CCRB bill. She didn't say, you know what, y'all, I need y'all to come with me to Trenton and make some noise for the CCRB bill. She didn't say that. And when she came out, I said, daughter, take a walk with me. All right? Y'all know how I grab people when spaces like that. You missed a moment. She said, what? You didn't talk about your bill. She said, what bill? I had to just put hands on her very gently in a very fatherly way. I said, your groundbreaking CCRB bill. These are your truths. You got to learn how to seize moments if you truly want to fight for something and be identified with historic, groundbreaking change. So, this conversation today is about how we better share this work. How we better, across our different lanes, share this work. How we uplift this work, right? And how we have each other's back in a more representative way to be impactful. Y'all hear what I'm saying? Panelists, y'all got me? Okay. Now we can start from a place like what we've got done. Because even in that, and I'm talking about us with each other in the different streams of struggle that we're talking about, but a lot of our community still doesn't understand what we do. Something's going on in the community for all of its limitations, right? First thing they say, we got to call the police. That energy is still there though, isn't it though, Sister Sharon? Right? And that needs education. Because when they call the police for certain situations, like a mental health crisis, they don't help us, they come and kill us. They come and kill us. So that ain't what we're talking about. The violence in Newark has been cut down in the last few years by more than a half. By more than a half by what we do without the police. Y'all hear me? All right. So this is, we also have to lift this up. This conversation has to happen in a way that is engaging in community. Our roundtables are trying to figure that out, right? And we have to be more in physical space again too, COVID beat us up, but we fight some COVID back too, right? So you may want to sum up where you're at with your respective works, where you see the work needs to go, right? And how do we bridge this gap? And y'all can just share your mics and go on down. And I'll get off this mic and get the hell out the way because I know I can go on and I need to stop. All right? Y'all give them a round of applause. Now, we started a little late. Where is Ed? Right? I need somebody to, all right, okay. Oh, you got your shirt on. I didn't see you. You changed up on me. I want you to let us know when we have to watch our time. We've started a little late, so they'll let us know on how time is going to go. In your opening remarks, this is a conversation y'all having. Y'all ain't got to, do a lecture, right? But, just those basic talking points and how we can move this work further in having each other's back in a better way. As you work. Go ahead. Brother Minister, you got the mic. Go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. That means peace be unto you. Once again, my name is Brother Abdul Haq Muhammad. I'm the student minister of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan for the Muhammad Mosque of Islam, number 25, which is located here in the city of Newark, New Jersey. And, as a student and follower of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, we believe in the resurrection of the dead, not in physical resurrection, but in mental resurrection. And we believe that the so-called Negroes are most in need of mental resurrection, therefore we will be resurrected first. And furthermore, we believe that we are the people of God's choice, as it has been written that God would choose the rejected and the despised. So biblically, we operate from a premise that's written of in the Bible in the book of Genesis in the 15th chapter, the 13th verse, where it says, "And the Lord said unto Abraham, Know of a surety that thy seed will be a stranger in the land that is not theirs, shall serve them and shall afflict them 400 years. And we believe that we are that people that have been afflicted for that 400 years. We believe that we have been robbed of the knowledge of ourselves, the knowledge of our language, the knowledge of our culture. And being robbed of the knowledge of self, it ultimately has robbed us of the love of self. So many of the behaviors that we exemplify is based on a situation, a circumstance. It's not who we are dispositionally or who God created us to be. So most of the behaviors in terms of what you call black on black violence, it has to be looked in the context of white on black violence. because we know that, historically speaking, we have been miseducated. And the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan teaches us that he who gives you the diameter of your knowledge prescribes the circumference of your activity. Carter G. Woodson said, when you control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his actions. You do not have to tell him to stand there or go there. You do not have to show him to the back door. He'll go there without being told. King Leopold of Belgium, who killed 15 million Africans in the Congo, he said, teach the niggas to forget their history and endure only ours. So a lot of what you see happening as it relates to black folks with the fratricidal homicide is because, historically speaking, you know that we are an oppressed people. Well, being oppressed, we now suffer from internalized oppression. And internalized oppression happens when the oppressed group begins to do to each other what the oppressors have done to them. So after being under their tutelage for over 462 years, right, we no longer need them to kill us, we kill ourselves. So again, we just need to be re-educated. We need to be introduced to that knowledge that Malcolm X was introduced to, along with thousands of others, not from a Eurocentric perspective, but from a black perspective. So again, our work is just to re-educate our people and retrain them into what? The knowledge of self. Because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, not having love for self is the root cause of our hate, dislike, disunity, disagreement, quarreling, betrayal, snitching, fighting, and killing one another. He said, how can we be loved if we have not love for self in our own nation and dislike being a member of our own? Then what other nation would trust our love and membership? In closing, black people love to go by the mantra of how we love everybody. But the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan says, if you love everybody, then you don't love nobody, because God does not love everybody. Because God hates the devil and God hates Satan. So how can you love everybody and we don't adequately love ourselves? So again, that is the root of what it is that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is bringing to us, the knowledge of ourselves, the knowledge of God, the knowledge of the enemy of God. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, Brother Hawk. I would be a bad student myself if I didn't open up in the name of the great creator of us all. I want to just say that this work, as Zaid was saying, comes from a long, long history, as Brother Hawk was just pointing out to us. This panel, I think, is called Reimagining Public Safety. And when I looked up the word to imagine, to actually use creative thought, to not be limited. Brother Hawk pointed out what our teacher teaches us, he who gives you your diameter of knowledge determines the circumference of our activity. We say to think outside the box. But how do we think outside the box if everything we reference to is in the box? So we have to be outside of the thinking of our enemy, the thinking of what our slave masters have taught us. And so our great mayor thought it not robbery to think outside the box, that when he came into office, that as many was thinking of how to be tough on crime, so-called, but he was thinking how to not only be wise against crime, but thinking outside of the parameters of the enemy. Because the definition of what public safety is comes from a definition that our enemies have given us. Our enemies have always said that safety was something that was really based off of money. I feel safe because I may have a certain amount of money. They even did a study during the trial of O.J. Simpson, and they asked a whole bunch of federal judges if they would rather be in a federal court that they are basically ruling over and be guilty in that federal court with money, or be innocent with no money. And they came out with a high percentage, majority of them, I think it was 89 or plus percentage, that they would rather be guilty with money. So what does that say? That says that, safety and justice, these things are not what we understand them to be, right? And so we have to think and imagine a new public safety paradigm where individuals' safety is not based on what this country has traditionally said is safety. Because safety is not just the absence of crime. Because you may feel safe if you live in other parts of this state or in a city where there's no crime. But if I roll through there, I may not feel as safe as you feel safe. I may feel actually unsafe because they may look at me like, what you doing here, nigga? You understand? So I feel unsafe to be in a place that traditionally people think is safe. So again, our understanding or our imagination of what safety is has to be different. So our safety here is created when we understand that safety lies within us. We practice a teaching of self-improvement is the basis for our community development. And so this is our true safety. As I improve myself, as I am able to understand what my rights are as a human being, how I can navigate this process, as he said, without so-called law enforcement, I don't have to navigate that process through that. Because there was a time for some of us that used to watch these old cowboy movies where they would set up a little desk in a little room somewhere and they would have court, if you will. But now look at this no justice system. They have these big offices and halls that we scared to even speak up in, scared to walk in, right? But that system was created over the period of time that just like this little room with just a few people was started. And so we're creating a whole new safety, public safety paradigm with the community at the center, the community-based public safety. We're basing it, we don't need to go in no office somewhere and to sentence anybody to any time. I often say that we're arresting situations, not people. Arresting situations, not people. And I ask law enforcement sometime, do you want to get a body or do you want to get that weapon off the street? Are you trying to lock somebody up? Or if that weapon that could have harmed me or my children or your children, if we can get that off the street from harming somebody, is that a win? And so it's not based on these data and these numbers, but it's based on the community and how the community feels safe. It's based on if that little boy or that little girl going to school, walking down the street, if they feel safe. Not because you got a car with lights on it sitting on the corner because something happened. But maybe they need a good morning. Maybe they need to understand how you're doing. Maybe they need to see a familiar face there that is going to be there on a consistent basis every day, greeting them with love, honor, and respect. This is the new, or to reimagine public safety. It ain't about a gun. It ain't about coming into a space that you can actually bully somebody, that you can actually use the violence that has been perpetrated on us for centuries to say that, oh, we're safe because of that. But it's about actually having people that look like us, that love us and care for us, represent us, and show that love and that care for us each and every day. And that's reimagining public safety. Peace.
First, I want to thank you all for attending. And listen, this is not an easy fix when we're talking about public safety. Most of you don't remember that 100 years ago, when the state police actually started, they started because they were actually trying to go against black people. Most of you don't even know what Zai was talking about earlier. We going in Bloomfield Avenue when black people couldn't walk up the street. So I'm going to tell you something. We have work in front of us. So I serve as the chairman for the NAACP for Newark, New Jersey. I also serve as the chairman for the New Jersey State Conference, NAACP. And most recently, I've been actually brought on board for the city of Newark to head our CCRB. Now, let me tell you why this is important. And I may even get a little bit upset. So please understand this. My sophomore year in college, this is trauma. My sophomore year in college, I'm living off campus. I had a job. I was sending money to my mom and pops in Newark. I was doing okay. When I got to the town to live off campus, when I go to school, I was stopped by the police. When I come back, I was stopped by the police. When I had to go to work, I was stopped by the police. When I came back from work, I was stopped by the police. So this happened to me every single day. So I was destined for this position because not only was I a victim, I'm committed. I seen what happened to people, especially black people who have been arrested for nothing, and it turns their life upside down. It turns their family life upside down. So I'm on the other side now because I used to be the chairman of the board. Now I'm the actual lead in City Hall regarding civilian complaint review boards. Now, our mission, and I actually want, this is nothing really serious, but I think that it should be recognized that we're going to be nationally recognized. Because when I was with the NAACP in Newark, the ordinance, the initial ordinance that was drafted was looked at by at least 20 different states. And they were calling the NAACP office because I was serving as the chairman. Now, we have an amendment to the ordinance. We have a nominating committee. We have candidates that are now going to be recognized by the mayor. We're going and serving on the board as commissioner and board members. So we have some work ahead of us. But I am tasked with this, to not let any resident in this city go through what I went through when I was a sophomore in college. Nobody. The person that helped me the most was Mayor Kenneth Gibson. I explained this to the law department when we were having a conversation last night. Kenneth Gibson called down to the school and told the school if anything happened to that kid that's from Newark, who's going to college and paying monies to his mother and father and being a good kid, Newark is coming down there. The rest is history. So, again, I'm destined for the job. We're going to make some changes in the city. We're going to make our mayor proud. We're going to make our residents proud. And trust me, the NAACP in Newark, the NAACP in the state of New Jersey, and I'm also on the committee for the National Criminal Justice Committee. So I'm going to use all my affiliations to get what we need for the city of Newark and the CCRB. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. I first want to start off by saying black love, and I love black people. And I'm here today because I love black people, and the work that I do is because I love black people, and that was instilled on me by my parents. When I was younger, right, I vividly remember like coming home one day and my parents saying they had a present for me on my bed. And as a 10-year-old, I was super excited, thinking, oh, this must be the newest, latest video game. So I'm running up the stairs to see this new video game on my bed, and it's not a video game, it's a book. And it's not just any book, it's the book, The Conspiracy to Destroy Black Boys. And I'm 10 years old, like what is this? Like, why am I reading this? Like, where's the video game? That book led me to become an educator today. So today I am a 3rd grade math teacher because of the things that I learned from that book and from my parents, that there is a conspiracy to destroy black children. So when we talk about violence, I remember this quote that Julian Bond once said, that don't talk to me about violence. Violence is a black child going to school for 12 years and only getting 6 years worth of education. That's violence. So we can eliminate that so-called black on black violence. That white on black violence is still happening. So you can have those flashing police lights on every corner, on every street. That's not safety, because you're still not safe from being evicted. You're still not safe from having food insecurity. Your children are still not safe from being expelled, suspended, or even failing. And as a teacher, one of the things I recognized early is the evil that exists in our public school systems. And the evil is so sophisticated right now. Raise your hand if you ever heard about a kid being left back. Right? Yeah, most of us have heard about kids being left back. How many of you heard about kids being skipped a grade? Right, that's normal. Kids being skipped a grade. We had one student who was misbehaving a lot, always giving the teachers a lot of trouble. Sometimes he was getting suspended. He was in 7th grade at the time. No, he was in 6th grade at the time. They didn't want to leave him back because they didn't want to deal with him again. So they skipped him. They skipped this failing child just so he can get out quicker, just so he can graduate quicker. That is violence. That's violence. So when we talk about public safety and we're trying to talk about eliminating violence, you can't solve that with police officers. Hiring more police officers isn't going to make us safer, right? You can put a police officer on every corner in Newark or in Patterson. That's not going to stop child abuse. That's not going to stop domestic violence in the homes. That's not going to stop sexual assaults inside the homes. That's not stopping violence. What's going to stop the violence is giving more resources to people. The safest communities don't have more officers, they have more resources. They have better schools, access to better jobs, access to better parks, more things for the kids to do, recreation. They have more resources. So why is it when we want to be safer, they give us more cops? And when white neighborhoods want to be more safer, they give them more resources. We have to end that practice as black people by saying we want to be safe, let's increase the police budget. Because when you increase the police budget, you know what decreases? Recreation. The things that we rarely need, like social services, those are the things that immediately get cut. When we have to then start firing teachers, when we have to expand the classroom sizes. So we have to be very careful as a people that when we demand more safety for our communities, it's not more police presence, it's not hiring more police officers. We need to start demanding that our people need to be hired. They need more jobs. Not more police officers, our young brothers and sisters out in the streets, they're the ones who need jobs. So when we think about reimagining public safety, I want us to imagine that it's not going to be solved by having more guns, right? It's not going to be having more armed police officers. It's going to be done by having the strongest weapon that we all have, which is not a gun, but the capacity to love one another.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Saturday. Most of us are running on 7 days working, so the people that are in the space, that are in the rooms, are the people that's already doing the work, that knows the work, and that knows what we up here we're talking about. And so I'm just going to bring some of it full circle from Minister Abdul all the way over, where he talked about knowledge of self, and knowing yourself and loving yourself is where a lot of this starts. And so for me, when I was about 12, 13, I was in pre-college at NJIT, and it was a professor by the name of Rahman Muhammad who taught chemistry from a black perspective. And so he was a bold black man. He was darker than these t-shirts, these black shirts. And yeah, and he was smart, and he was a scientist, and he taught that everything comes from blackness, everything comes from us. And so it was the first time I had ever heard it, and during that time, I struggled with being dark, right? Because you get called tar baby and blackie and all of those things, and being dark as young people, you know, young people are cruel, they call you names. And when he taught that and he said that, my life changed. I said, I'm never doing nothing if it's not from a black perspective. And so that's what sparked me in the work. And so as we move forward, like Saeed said, and you know, me being a part of the Black Panther Party, I said if I was born in the 60s, I was going to be a Panther. And I worked my first job out of college in Irvington at a high school, and the new Black Panther Party was coming to teach the kids there after school. They had an after-school program. I said, I'm going to join those people. And so I began to, you know, go to the meetings. The meetings were, you know, on 9th Street and 13th Avenue at WASET. And we had political education classes. And it was teaching us about knowledge of self and teaching us about ourselves and teaching us. And from there, we began to organize and mobilize in the community. And a lot of my training comes from the Black Panther Party. And so we begin to, during that time, so we're about 15, 20 years in, when we had over 100 homicides and murders happening in the city. And shootings and robberies and stabbings and carjackings was happening every day. We were like ambulance chasers, that's what they would call us, right, during that time. Because we was at the scenes and we was going and we was like trying to help the people, but not understanding what we understand now. And so New Black Panther Party ended up folding its work into Newark Anti-Violence Coalition work. And during that time, it was a Stop Self-Genocide campaign. And we had SOS, right? And we had Street Warriors. And we had Stop Shooting organization. All these organizations was spouting out, right? Essex County Anti-Violence Code. All of these organizations were sprouting out. But we ultimately knew that we needed to work together. And that's ultimately where we are now, in terms of working with the Nation of Islam, working with North Community Street Team, working with NAACP, Black Lives Matter, coming all the way over. And so the key to this work is us collaborating and partnering. And ultimately, reimagining public safety. During that time, we have to tell the truth. We didn't have trust in the community with law enforcement, right? And so the issue around law enforcement was the issue where we were in the streets, face to face with law enforcement, right? Around this issue around violence. Where we didn't have a chance to choose who our police director was. We didn't have an opportunity to be involved in a conversation around public safety. We was just giving people and saying, this is going to be the police director. And so under Newark Anti-Violence Coalition, began to fight back and had demands. And in the streets every week for 155 weeks. And their first demand was Gary McCarthy must go. And McCarthy came from New York. And that was under Cory Booker, and it was like, no, we got our own people here that we can make choices around in terms of public safety. So not just him, but we want to be a part of the public safety conversation. Our other demand was around employment, because we understood that violence was about poverty. And so people needed to have jobs and living wages. And so we was fighting about employment for Newarkers. And the next one was the Amistad. Because if we put Black and brown history in the schools, people are less likely to hurt and kill themselves when they love themselves and know about themselves. And we had a demand around Bloods and Crips putting their guns down, street organizations, stop killing each other, put your guns down. And our last one was around violence as a public health issue. And so this is where how we come full circle, because we had demands and folks began to organize around those demands. And some folks went to jail over this stuff. And we would go to every community where violence was taking place, and we would talk to the community. We put the ownership back on the community for public safety. This is your community. This is your neighborhoods. Y'all know who did it. Y'all know what happened. You can't do business as usual, and we're not going to allow you to. And so the accountability was on the community for public safety. And so when we would go to these neighborhoods, we would circle up, and so people would pass a note and say, I know what happened. I know who did it. But we didn't tell the police. We're going to tell y'all, but we're not going to tell the police. And this is when we began to know that the community was the key to public safety, when they was willing to talk to us and not the police. when they was willing to let us see the cameras and not the police. And so this is how we begin to organize around public safety with the community. We had rallies. We helped the mayor get elected. This is the people's mayor right here. Cory Booker's over here, but this is the people's champ, right? Because we was in the streets and we was organizing around it. And ultimately, with violence becoming a public health issue, we begin to realize we need resources, right? So we can't just have these demands, but how are we going to fund these things? How are we going to put resources? And that's what Zelly talked about, that you have to have resources, not more police, but how are we going to have more resources? And so we come full circle. The mayor's initiative began to be the Newark Community Street Team as a public safety strategy. Newark Street Academy as a public safety, was a education strategy under the mayor when he got elected. And we continue to move forward. And ultimately where we are now, I'm just going to fast forward now, where we have an Office of Violence Prevention, but we had a Brick City Peace Collective before that, where it said that we needed to organize and pull together all the organizations to do this work. We needed everybody to do this work. And that was under the auspices when we began to rally around defunding the police. And so defunding the police happened when George Floyd was brutalized by the police. Most times, a lot of these actions happen when we are brutalized by the police, when we see our people being killed on national TV, and we have protests and outcries around what needs to happen. And so this was one of the outcries, and so we signed an executive order to create the Office of Violence Prevention, where we reallocated 5% of the police department's budget to create the office. And 5% of $225 million is $11.5 million. $11 million that we didn't have before to be able to pay social workers and outreach workers and victim advocates and people who've been on the grounds doing this work for free for years, right, can now have an opportunity to be paid to do this work. The work gets valued and professionalized. And that's where we are now around having equity in the space where law enforcement, when we go to the scenes, we get to talk to them in a way that's equitable. They get to know who we are and how we help them in this work, that we're the valuable ones in this work, that we got it, don't worry about it, y'all can fall back, we got it. With a Najee Seabrook situation should have never been able to happen, where in the city of Newark, it's not gonna say never, but it can't happen when we have relationship to say this person has a mental health issue, we have experts and we have people that can deal with it, respect our expertise in this work. And we got it, stand back, fall back, stand down, we're going to intervene in it, we got it. And so that's really, as we come full circle around this work, working together, collaboration and partnership, accountability, resources being put into the work, and it being professionalized. Thank you.
Brother Ed, how much time do we have? 15 minutes, okay, right? Right, in that 15 minutes, let's get some conversation in, right? Y'all heard those presentations, right? And we want to build on those presentations, right? And I know some of you got some things that you want some clarification on, or some things that you want to lift up, right? So we can certainly do that. Go ahead and say what you're going to say, and then we'll start taking the questions.
I just want to say that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has taught us that unity will solve 95% of our problems. So what you see up here and what we're doing, this really is an act of war. This is a declaration of war against those that have traditionally oppressed us, enslaved us, and opposed us. Because my teacher teaches me that if you don't know what was, you can't know what is, and you'll be ill prepared for what is yet to come. So we've never had, since we've been in America, public safety. America was not created and established for our safety. Never. Not only have we not had safety in public, we were not able to do anything in public. We were not able to worship in public. And that's why the first institutions that black people created in this country were called hush harbors. Hush harbors, where we would go inside the woods and we would worship in silence and worship quiet so that the slave master would not hear us worshiping. Why? Because it was illegal for us to come together for us to worship. What we're doing right now in New Jersey in 1751, it was illegal in this state for 5 or more black people to come together. Why? Because the enemy or our slave master was always afraid that if we organized and if we united, that we would do to them what they have done to us. So they've always sought to keep us at odds, to keep us hating each other, to keep us envious of one another. So it is the modus operandi of the United States government, according to COINTELPRO and other documents, that black people are never, ever to be united. Right. Why? Because strength is in our unity. And this is why Brother Zaid said that we had some internal bumps. Well, we always have had internal bumps, right. Trying to organize and trying to unite where? In America. So not only was we not able to worship in public, hell, we was not able to carry mail in public. It was illegal for us to be mail carriers here. That's why we established what? The Underground Railroad. Because it was too dangerous for us to try to get freedom in the presence of our enemies. So this is no plaything here, what we're doing when we coming together to unite. Those who have oppressed us, they see this as an act of war and a declaration of war. I close on this. They once asked the Frenchman, why have you always been able to overcome and kill those brothers and sisters of African descent or those in Africa? He said, because they never knew that it was war. So we have to know that we are at war, brothers and sisters, when we are trying to organize, when we are trying to separate from those that have never wanted us to separate from them. When we are trying to educate our own, then you are dangerous to the system and dangerous to the society that have always wanted to kill you and always wanted you to be subjugated. So this is no plaything, what we are attempting to do in terms of establishing public safety when we've never had public safety here in this country.
That's right. Give him a round of applause. A couple things need to be added to his point and we'll take the questions. One, I want to remind everybody that in 1972, Minister Louis Farrakhan was very present at the National Political Convention in Gary, Indiana, right? We want to acknowledge that if we didn't already, right? And he was there because he understood that then. And what was the maximum manifestation of that? Have you forgotten the Million Man March already? Have you forgotten that? Have you forgotten? Somebody said that we had 1.7 million folks out there. Now I had to send my men from my field freedom school so they could go. So I couldn't go. But somebody said that who gave us that 1.7 million also probably gave us that 250,000 they gave us for the March on Washington. Probably more than that. But you saw a sea of black men answering a drum around the harm and the hurt that was raw in our community, of us out of our African minds killing each other over madness. And the young Louis Farrakhan understood the value and the importance of having that kind of vision. No matter any of our criticisms or limitations about that, and I was one of the ones arguing, it should be on Black Solidarity Day, right? That happened. God, it was beautiful. I don't know, sons and daughters, grandsons, granddaughters, let me tell you something. Our people all over the world are waiting for us to stand up again. Because when we stand up, they say, it's all right, we can stand up too. That George Floyd summer 2 years ago, all up and down the streets, not just in the United States, but that protest rolled from Boston all the way down to Buenos Aires, Argentina. You know, we got black folks all over Latin America. And when them slave ships brought us here, most of them landed in Latin America, and they're still there. They're still there. And I'm going to tell you something else. I opened with a criticism of the 72 convention around the question of sexism. Guess who was leading most of those marches? Our daughters and our granddaughters. And brothers, don't get it twisted. The feminine principle will show you how to heal and come together, but it will also hold you behind accountable when you ain't right. Try and live without the love of your queen. You got, I'm trying to make it plain to you, right? Or when your mothers and your aunts turn your ass away because you out of your damn mind, they ain't got no sense to respect anybody. Your ass is out there. Huh? So we can do this. And our children are watching us. They're praying for us in their way, even they're trying to figure out how to pray. Right? And our people all over the world want to see us do this. And you know what? We are the descendants of ancestors that have given the world its highest civilizations. You know, our European folks are still trying to figure out what's on those tombs in Kemet, in ancient Egypt. Those of us who know that it's Metu Neter, we know what it is. And when we spread civilization, that's what we did. The African civilization principle is not one of harm as we move throughout the world from Africa, but a one of sharing throughout the world, right? So we got a lot to give to humanity, and folks need to stop being afraid of that and grow the hell up spiritually. Let's take a couple questions, right? Go ahead, raise your question, beloved. I'm going to repeat it so they can hear it and we can have it on tape.
We have my daughter and son, I have a 17-year-old and a 12-year-old in the North Public School System. And I heard the young lady said that she's part of the Anti-Violence Coalition. And I was wondering, when they have this no snitch policy, and we're dealing with a lot of gangs, the Bloods, the Crips, the Latin Kings. We can talk about history and culture, but we have to deal with what our children are going through on a day-to-day basis. How do we get the Anti-Violence Coalition into the school system with their curriculum to teach our children that is insane with this no-snitch policy in dealing with that issue? If someone killed my grandmother, and they're not going to come forth and tell the public what happened to her. That's a serious issue in our community. And I was wondering if the sister could address that issue in reference to curriculum in the North Public School system, in addressing the curriculum for our children so they can understand.
Yeah, this is for camera's sake, because he didn't have a mic. He's raising the question about what do we do when our children, you know, are subject of violence and or witnessing violence, and the question of presence, bringing the question of curriculum or curriculum of consciousness and presence into the school system. I'm going to say right off the top, and I'm going to say that for all of us, it's one of the spaces where the partnership definitely needs to improve is with our school system, right? Absolutely, right? Now, and we have some things in place that are working already. You see these, you hear these strong sisters on fire because they're part of the Mighty Newark Community Street Team. We have a safe passage program in spaces around our schools, right? Right? We got a wonderful partnership with this school. In fact, your next moderator is a teacher from the school, and the superintendent of the school was here. So there is, you know, that's a space where we definitely need to bring, you know, that institutional resource question and the capacity for making all those spaces safe, you know, in play. And y'all can respond to that. I just want to give an overview.
I know. So, as you said, beyond the Newark Anti-Violence Coalition, right, we have the Brick City Peace Collective, which consists of about 40 community-based organizations and institutions, and the Board of Education is a part of the Brick City Peace Collective. And so what I would say is, from an organizing place, because there's rules around who can come into the schools and who can't, who can teach those things and who can't, and who we're hiring in the school systems, right? And so as a parent, I would say for you to raise that at the school board meetings in terms of having a demand around what you want to see. Our young people are bored in the schools. Our young people are not getting what they need. The people who are teaching don't represent and look like them, right? And so a part of that in terms of safety and all of those things, we have the safe passage, but that's outside the schools. We've been fighting to get inside the school. Right. And if you have a criminal background, you can't be in the schools, and you know, it's different rules around that. But the people who are closest to the problem is closest to the solutions. And so those people who need to be in the schools are not allowed in. And so we are outside the schools before they get to school. But when they get out to school, we're in the safe passageways by the stores and different things, and we are working with them and talking to them And so we are working harder to be able to talk to the guidance counselors and the school board people who make these decisions, but it's really at the school board level. And so we have Mr. Kirby is here, he's in Safe Passage. We have North Community Street Team over here. One Hood is now going to the schools after school, but we need to be in those schools and we need to be teaching. And so our revolutionary teachers, Bashir Akingele is back there, right? He's been teaching Black history in Weekway forever, right? And so our councilwoman is an educator as well. So we have Principal Bird here. So we have folks that's in the education system here. And so we have to push those measures around who we let in the schools to do our teaching and what the curriculum looks like. We have to change these antiquated curriculums, and we need to put people in the schools that look like them, represent their interests, that they can learn from.
Brother Damon is also going to respond, but I want to also remind everybody it is too. Keisha talked about some of our demands when Mighty Newark Anti-Violence Coalition was shutting down streets week after week for 155 straight weeks, for those of y'all that don't know. One of our demands also was the implementation of the Amistad curriculum. We have a law on the books in the state of New Jersey that does not have enforcement that says that African American history should be rightfully infused in curriculum throughout the grades from K through 12, right? And because it does not have the enforcement dimensions that it needs, it is not happening throughout those schools. That is a de-racist tool. It's a de-racist tool for white kids, and it's an empowering tool for children of color, right? That's a healing place that needs to happen, right? Mr. A, that's what his students call him, right? As a part of that curriculum challenge here in the North school system. And it is not fully implemented. It's work that has to be done. So in our next panel, and I want y'all to look, because our next panel is on the question of education, right? We want to talk further about how to deal with that. One of our partners is the MAPSO Freedom School. This is an organization of parents, teachers, and students around those issues in their community, in their schools, right? So there are ways to approach this. So I just want to flag that. Damon, go ahead.
Thank you. Very quickly, thank you, brother. I know we're getting the signal here. I'm going to try to do it in 10 seconds or less. There's a program called Stop the School Violence. We're partnering with one of our non-traditional schools where many of the high-risk and at-risk individuals are. And we are the first actual organization nationwide to actually be a leader in that. That particular program is usually led by law enforcement. And so I understand what you're saying with the stop snitching and that whole psychology. But we have to ask ourselves, where does that come from? Why doesn't our community feel safe to share information with law enforcement? Because there's a reason behind that. And so we have to really try to understand where that comes from, at the same time educating ourselves on that particular issue. Will the violence stop because we go to law enforcement? I don't think so, right? And so how can we stop the violence that is taking place, as we said earlier, bringing the resources so we'll have the resources to re-educate or to educate, because we wasn't educated in the first place. So to truly educate about a true knowledge of self and understanding and loving self so we won't harm self, but then to understand too that if we can get with those individuals that can mediate some of these conflicts to a peaceful resolve, we don't need law enforcement, or we don't need outside forces to come in and legislate something, or to, send us somewhere to reharm us and things like that. So we really need a way to mediate some of these conflicts on our own to bring peace inside the school.
Give him a round of applause. And let me end this particular panel by saying this also, because I want us to see both sides of this question, right? We tell no lies, claim no easies. We got some work to do on the police front too. You heard me mention Najee Seabrooks and Bernard Plessy Jr. and some of our victims and Andrew Washington. Don't forget Carl Dorsey, after a year of Newark police not firing a shot. That was wild. Wonderfully wild. On New Year's Day, a kid just happened to be in the wrong place at the right time, didn't know what was happening. The jump out boys, who have not been held accountable by this federal consent decree, still jumping out, got blown away by a police officer who had a track record of being a foul police officer. And if we had strong civilian oversight, his behind would have been gone years ago. So we got work to do on all of these fronts. So I want y'all to appreciate why the spirit of unity is important, and making unity operational on some principle is important. Y'all hear me? Y'all give our presenters a round of applause. We have work to go. We have work to do. We have places to go. I want to lift up 2 other united spaces that some of us work in on the community-based violence intervention and prevention side. We have a statewide coalition that does that. New Jersey Violence Intervention Programs Coalition, NJVIP Coalition. You can find it. We got a webpage. I probably got the site wrong, but if you put the right words in, y'all know what to do. Y'all Googlers, right? In New Jersey, Communities for Accountable Policing on the police brutality front. So those are some other places that organizations can come so we can be stronger and closer together in trying to push for those things in terms of resources and legislation that we need, all right? And to my far right is a young man who's going to give us has been giving us some serious love. The mix has been powerful. Right, he took me back. Me and Sharon were bugging out over the music that he was playing because we're old enough to remember the music from that time. See, and that probably saved some of us from going completely overboard. DJ Rhino is in the house. So as we get ready to assemble for the next panel, DJ Rhino, you got the mic and the 1-2s. Do your thing.